So I hope you guys are all right. So today I have been assigned to talk on Mourning becomes Electra, Part 3, Act 2, and this is the last part of the play. And so let's go on. So most of this act setting is old Ezra's study room, and most of the room is filled with darkness, with less light entering in the room, and so very place is one of the most important scenes has took place in this room. So this is going to be a very important act in the last play. So let's move on. So we are back in the study where old Ezra's portrait hangs, and it's been a month since the last time we saw Orin, and looks like he has taken a turn for the worse, as if he wasn't bad enough already. So we all are aware that Orin and Lavinia escaped from the state some time ago for an island. An island itself is a symbol of escaping for the fictitious world and wild world, but their purpose hasn't been fulfilled, because their purpose to leave for the island is to leave all the demons behind. But Orin specifically realized that it's no good escaping the state, because ultimately they have to set their terms right with the demons of their fathers, demons of their mothers, whom they have caused directly or indirectly death. So they have returned to a state to face the demons, to try their luck, to to pacify the demons, so that they would go on to live their normal life. Let's see they will be successful or not. We will see that in the upcoming lines of this act. So he looks way older. He means Orin. Orin looks now way older, almost the exactly image of the portrait of Papa Manon hanging above him. The fact he has dressed in black does not help. He is morphing in the opposite direction from his sister. So one of the major points to focus in this act is both Orin and Lavinia, after returning to their estate for some years, looked exactly to the image of their father and father and mother respectively, as if they are the second images of their parents, and they will not just be looking and resembling physically, but we will see that they will act in exactly the same way, behave in the same way. So looking like an emaciated version of his dead dad, Orin sits in almost total darkness, writing like crazy, with a bunch of papers piled up next to him. So they are looking like an emaciated version of their dead dad and parents. So, and bunch of papers has been piled up next to Orin's desk. He's talking to the portrait of Ezra as he works, hinting that what he is writing is the full story of the Menon clan and its sordid history. Lavinia's, is very anxious about what Orin is up to. She is very anxious what Orin is about to do. So she always try to check in how Orin is doing, and so again Lavinia's just being anxious, tries to get into the room, but she finds that the door is closed, and so definitely it's a very anxious thing for Lavinia. And after she does some banging and yelling, Orin lets Lavinia in. He hides what he has been working on in a drawer and locks it. See what Orin has been writing in his papers is something mysterious and something scary for Lavinia. And Lavinia realized this, and she, after getting curious, what's new with her crackpot brother, Lavinia asks what he's been doing. So Lavinia realizes that her stupid brother might do something that would harm both of them. So she tries to prevent it. See what she would do in the upcoming lines. He says he is reading about crime and punishment in Ezra's old law books. So this is how Orin replies to Lavinia when she asked him what he is up to. Lavinia suspects something else is going on, but Orin denies it. She changes the subject, asking why he stays all locked up in the study with the shutters closed. He says he feels like he should be shut off from natural light, what he calls God's light, because that is the way the guilty are, doomed to wallow in their own darkness. So this light theme or symbol is a very interesting thing to look on. First of all, Orin has been studying Crime and Punishment, which is a book set on themes of guilty, of punishment, and what their consequences would be, how your inner self stagnates you from inside and outside when you do something terrible, when you end up doing something criminal. So Orin excused himself that he's been reading Crime and Punishment to make a point that he's been trying to make sense of the world around himself, that he's trying to make sense of this life in itself, and he considered himself past God's help, and he is destined to be doomed, and he does not deserve the light of the nature, the light of God. He does not deserve God's helping hand, and he is pretty hopeless in this state of mind. So we get the impression Lavinia is used to this. Lavinia realizes that Orin spends most of his time alone in utter darkness, hopeless, pathetic situation of his. She just tells Orin she does not believe he is studying law and opens up the shutters to let the light in. Regardless of Orin's insistence, she goes on to open the windows to let the light in, which would be obviously a cause of discomfort for Orin. So it's a night and not a star in the sky. What was it Orin said about the guilty being cut off from God's light? So this is an important question to ask for yourself. And Lavinia tries to tell Orin she's just worried about his failing health. Lavinia tries to win his Oren's empathy by telling that she's really worried about his health, and she's not on to planning something harmful for Oren. Oren implies that he's not going to die anytime soon, no matter what his sister wants. So Oren quite sarcastically says something, that he's not going to die anytime soon, but that is what she wants, me to die. And now Lavinia, after acting like an awful, like her mother, Lavinia mentions that she's glad he ate a decent sized meal that night, and says that the walk he took with Hazel seemed to help. Now Hazel is an interesting character. Hazel points out to the outer world, the real world, the middle class girl from the world, unlike Lavinia and Oren, who belongs to the elitist class, and who he has fallen onto this first first world crisis, our elite crisis. So Hazel tries to help, Oren specifically tries to release him from this chamber of hell. So Oren says he hates the way Lavinia never leaves them alone. Quite the contrary, Oren does not like Hazel's help or Lavinia's help for that matter, and because he thinks that being with Hazel, who is so good and thinks he's the same way, makes him feel guilty and hate and himself even more. Oren says that he feels very helpless. He feels that his guilt increased manifold, especially when Hazel tries to behave good with him, because he does not deserve kindness of anyone, especially of the innocent woman like Hazel. So this is the situation of Oren. Not exactly the best recipe for a lasting relationship, which is a bummer both because Hazel and Oren are newly engaged. Lavinia admits to being afraid to leave them alone because Oren might confess to something. Lavinia admits to Oren that he does not leave Oren alone, or Oren and Hazel alone, because she fears that Oren would say something secret to Lavinia, which would end the story of both of them. So she tells him she's sick of his guilty conscience and wishes he would just get over it. When she adds that he should hate Christine for wanting to leave him and run off with another man, Owen says that that is exactly what Lavinia plans on doing. So when Lavinia makes a point that he should not feel guilt, he should not feel guilt on being the direct or indirect cause of his mother's death, by saying that Christine deserved this. Christine died out of her own sins because she was engaged in unethical affair with a man. So Oren replied to this point that Lavinia has made, that this is the same thing what Lavinia has been doing now, or is planned to doing, of engaging in a unethical affair. Oren figures now is as good as a time as any to tell Lavinia what he's been up to. Finally, Oren gathered his strength to tell Lavinia that he's been writing an unfiltered, completely honest history of the Menon family, one that leaves nothing out. He adds, Orin adds that he is trying to see if he can tell what awfulness is going to happen next to the Menon clan, but he can't. So Orin is just, telling Lavinia everything what he's been doing all these last few days. He has been writing a history of this family and the tragedy that has befallen onto them, and especially exposing the evil nature of Lavinia. And he is specifically set on to exposing Lavinia to the world. When he would no longer be here, the people will realize what the real face of Lavinia looks like. And he also says the most of what he has written is about Lavinia. In response to Lavinia's shocked anger, Oren mentions that he saw Lavinia flirting with a random sailor on one of the ships on which they sailed, and he accuses her of being in love with Bran herself. So Lavinia is doing the same thing that her mother, Christine, was doing, that Lavinia has been involved in flirting with a sailor on the ship. And we all know that, a journey or a voyage that is taken through sea usually takes months or even sometimes years. So, so this affair doesn't seem, as if it is for a day or two, Lavinia could be flirting with this random sailor for many days, for many months. They are enough to, make this claim for Orin that Lavinia is doing the same that Christine was doing. He says that's really why she wanted to murder Christine. Orin said that is why Lavinia wants Christine to be dead, because Lavinia herself, loved Brant. More denials from Lavinia. Lavinia straightforwardly denied the accusation of him. Oren brings up that islander Avahani again. He accuses his sister of shameless behavior on the island. At first, Lavinia gets even more upset, but then she admits that she kissed him. The next part of the argument is about a perfect repeat of the argument that Ezra and Christine have. When Ezra finds out that she cheated, Oren screams at Lavinia, accusing her of being a whore and threatening to kill her. So Oren brings up that islander Avahani again. He accuses his sister of shameless behavior on the island. At first, Lavinia gets even more upset, but then she admits that she kissed him. The next part of the argument is almost a perfect repeat of the argument that Ezra and Christine have. When Ezra finds out that she cheated, Oren screams at Lavinia, accusing her of being a whore and threatening to kill her. Oren is convinced that they have become their parents, literally. Lavinia senses that something is off, and she's right. She starts begging for it all to stop. That's Oren's craziness, the argument, everything. So Lavinia has sensed of the future, and Lavinia is quite wary of what Oren has been cooking up from these last few days. And she does not trust Oren. Oren does not trust Lavinia. But it just keeps right on going, and Oren accuses her of trying to kill him. Oren straightforwardly accuses her that she's been trying to kill him because Oren is about to do the same thing what Lavinia was doing, to expose her mother of her affair. So Oren is doing the same thing. He is trying to expose Lavinia on her affair, and naturally Lavinia would do the same thing that she has done to her mother, and this is that she would try to kill Oren. So that is what Oren's point of view is. Lavinia says that he is the one putting these thoughts into her head, and she keeps yelling at Oren to stop. Lavinia says it, and responded to this accusation that she's not planning to do something like that, but it is Oren who is suggesting her with his constant insistence on, and with his constant thoughts on what Lavinia would do. Eventually she breaks down, she just let herself completely down. Owen asks her to leave so he can keep working, and she runs from the room in tears. Then, Lavinia just left the room entirely, completely sensing what a great tragedy is about to happen, and Oren would try to harm himself or her, and every hope of their fighting the demon is just getting dimmer and dimmer, and they are quite hopeless in the future. So this is the Act 2 Part 3. Now I have just written some of the analysis, which I will go through in a minute. Black and white, right and left. So darkness and light. You would have sensed it that in the lines that there is an element of darkness and lightness. What does that mean? When Oren is sitting quiet in darkness in old Ezra's study room, what does all mean? Black and white could mean right and left, darkness and light, all classic prayers that are used to describe good and evil in a slightly fancier and prettier literary way. Throughout Mourning becomes Electra. It's safe to say that if something isn't right, it happens at night, that in the dark or behind closed doors where nobody can see. Christine murdering Ezra, Lavinia and Oren conspiring to murder Brandt. Christine's and Oren's suicides all go on after the sun sets. It's also safe to say that if it happens during the day, it's about making things okay. In other words, the day is usually when you see the friendly, polite and pretty side of things, when it's all about keeping up appearances, like during Ezra's funeral. For our money, though, there is no better use of light versus dark imagery than when Oren goes off on Lavinia, when Lavinia criticizes him for keeping the shutters closed. So yeah, darkness and light. Most of the bad things are happening in darkness, in night time, and they are trying to repair things up in the day, in the bright island, just like that. So this is one of the themes. The second is ghosts haunting the estate. So we all know that both Erin and Lavinia, who are left of their family, has returned to the estate to make reconciliation. But they think with their dead parents, they think that by returning to the estate for quite few days, they will be forgiven by their dead parents, and they would be able to live their life. And once the unfortunate Ezra Menon and his murdering adulteress of a wife are out of the picture, ghosts seem to be everywhere in the different parts of the Mourning becomes Electra. When Oren and Lavinia return from their little vacation away from guilt, it's clear from their conversation that Oren's convinced that ghosts live inside the house. Even before they show up, that is the important thing. That Oren and Lavinia, only not they think that ghosts haunt the estate. Even the outer world, the third class people, third middle class people, like Said and his buddies and his servants, they all think that they all are talking about the dead Menons that used to walk the halls of the Menon estate. We admit ghosts are really cool, but that's not the only reason why they keep showing up. Think back to Said's pals and the way they talk about ghosts. Ghosts haunt places where horrible things have happened, usually to the person who is now a ghost. Then that is an interesting point, that ghosts haunt places usually where bad things have happened, where cruel and injustice has happened, and ghosts haunt that particular place and try to take their revenge or punish their offender in some or other way. So they represent a part of a pretty awful past that just won't stay buried, a terrible secret that just won't die. Particularly angry ghosts like Patrick Swayze will even haunt the person who did them wrong in life or refuse to cross over to the great beyond until justice is served and the truth about how they died is told. Now we all know that how they died. We all know the secrets of the family, what is happening inside. And the story has reached us, story has reached us, isn't it? That we are here studying and reading the story of this family. It means that, that some of the character has actually managed to get to us this story. Maybe the papers, maybe the writer is trying to make a claim that his story is not fictitious, and this story has reached to us the same stories or with the same papers that Oren was writing onto. So in Mourning, the Electra ghosts are used to symbolize feelings of guilt and to represent the inescapability of the past. So this was my brief presentation. Yes, and so this was my brief presentation. Hope you have enjoyed it. If I have mistakes, let me know and rectify it. Okay, goodbye.